Geez, what a handsome group of guys.
I'll tell you what, much better looking than we were 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Get better all the time.
Oh man, it's good to see you guys.
We still have a few more that were going to join us, but I'll let them in as they check in. Here was the proposed agenda. What we've been doing is giving our newcomers the opportunity to bring us up to speed with their past, their present, whatever they want, 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll go in alphabetical. So Bob Donnelly, you're on.
Oh, hi, nice to see all you, and you all look just the same as you did 51 years ago, or whenever it was last when I saw you. And other than my constant problem with lying, I'm doing fine. As you know, I'm in a pretty powerful and intense moment in my life, having just buried my second wife. So everything is clouded by or colored by grief. And so that's probably the central truth of my life at this moment. I was lucky enough to have loved 2 women. My first wife, Josie, died in 2005. Nancy died in May of this year. Josie died of brain cancer, glioblastoma, and Nancy had dementia for about 8 years of our 11-year marriage. What have I done with myself? Well, I left from Whitefriars in 1970. I didn't finish the graduate, the theology degree.
Don't think you will.
The first thing I did after that was teach for about a year and a half. I met my first wife then, and she was a school teacher.
Bob, excuse me a minute. We're getting some interference coming from a couple of participants. So if you're not speaking, can you at least mute your microphone? Please mute your microphone. And when it's your turn, we'll go in alphabetical order, beginning with Phil. And so when it's your turn, I'll call on you and you can turn your mic on. I think that's going to help cut out some of the interference. I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Okay, so I left Whitefriars in 1970. I obviously didn't finish the theology degree we were after. I started teaching high school, met my wife, who was teaching in the public schools in Washington, D.C. We married in 71. I finished my English degree from Notre Dame, the one I started while I was still in seminary. And I did a social work degree at Catholic University. We moved out to Washington, out to Minnesota and established a community with Dale and Dave and their families. I raised 2 daughters. I did psychotherapy for a living for about 40 years. I quit that in favor of my second wife, Nancy's illness back about 9 years ago, when it became clear to me that doing a psychotherapy practice and doing what she needed me to do were 2 different things. And so I let go of that. And I was able then to travel with her and her family. She and her family were Chinese immigrants in the 1940s, and they all did quite well in the United States, and they loved traveling. So between the time that I married Nancy and when she passed, we had traveled to over 50 countries and had been out of the country at least twice a year, if not 3 times a year, on overseas journeys. I've been to China about 4 times, maybe 5 times, 4 or 5 times. And almost all of that travel has been with her family. And that was quite an intense and powerful part of our marriage together. In fact, the last trip, when we got evacuated because of COVID, we were in Argentina, in the Patagonia area, and we're enjoying a final trip with her family. Her illness progressed fairly rapidly after that during COVID, and I was very grateful in an odd kind of way for a respiratory illness, which eventually took her life this spring when she could no longer fight it off. Other than that, kind of proud of the fact that Dave and Dale and I and our children have formed a family of sorts, and that's sustained me through the loss of two spouses. My two daughters, one lives in town here. She's a nurse practitioner, and she took her mother's social justice bones. She works with the homeless, seems to love that kind of work. My older daughter, a little bit more like me, perhaps, she's an academic and teaches social work at University of Windsor, just outside of Detroit in Canada. Other than that, let's see, how many minutes do I have there?
Don't worry about it. Don't just go right ahead.
I think Dave sent almost all of you a document that was the result of an interview that Nancy's first husband did with me about a month or 2 months ago, and that encapsulates, in those 10 questions or so, encapsulates an awful lot of my internal journey over these 50 years. And I have had a bit of a feedback from a couple of you, but certainly would invite any further feedback any of you have about that journey of mine. Beyond that, right now I'm filling my days with trying to raise money for the school in Africa that I think all of you are somewhat aware of the fact that, because I biked across the country raising money about age 70. And that I think all of you probably got emails about that, and many of you contributed. Thank you so much. I have a different task in mind for this next spring. My former business partner and I are going to do the Camino de Santiago, which is about a 500-mile walk across northern Spain that most of you remember from your church history, probably. And that's also in service of a fundraising for the school in Africa. And so I'm looking forward to that. I was out today and I'm testing my body out this late summer and fall, seeing if it will do those extended miles. So far, so good. So I'm in after 15 miles yesterday and 15 miles today, and I can still walk. So I think I'll be able to do that journey. And you will all get emails from me soliciting funds for Agaliwa School in the spring. So get ready. And I'll wrap that up, but that's kind of what I'm doing. I've been very lucky with my own health. Obviously, crossing the country on a bike and walking 500 miles says something about what I think I can do at the moment. And so that's partially good luck and partially hard work. And so I'll take credit for the hard work, and I'll nod to the good luck. So that's what I have to say. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Bob, thanks very much. Next up, from Minneapolis, Dale Panton. Hello, my good friend.
Today's 9/11, and I think a lot of us left each other on what was after the fire at Niagara, which I think we could consider our 9/11. Because it ended a lot of things for us. And anyway, as Bob said, we kind of have a little community here between Bob's family, my family, and Dave Walsh's family. Our children actually call each other, after all these years, call each other sort of cousins. And anyway, it's kind of neat that we have that support system going on, as Bob had mentioned. I left in 1968 when we all graduated from college. And I was destined for Whitefriars. And maybe you'll remember that some of us went to schools and taught and did other things. I was destined for Whitefriars. Dave Franzen, rest in peace, was assigned to Joliet Catholic High School. And somehow things got switched at the last minute. And all of a sudden they wanted to send Dave to Whitefriars. And they looked around for hey, is there any more science guys? He was going to teach biology. Any more science and math guys? Okay, Panton, it's you. So I wound up at Joliet Catholic High School for 2 years. And it was a grand experience. However, I left in 1970. The hardest day I had in those years, I think, was driving up to Barrington, Illinois, where I had to tell Malachi Smith I was leaving. Anyway, it happened. So then I left there, and I see Art Hill is here. And I actually drove my wife to Fordham University. She had summer school stuff there. And I decided to visit Art. Lived in Connecticut. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I just left and I'm looking for a job. He said, well, he was the HR director at the State National Bank of Connecticut at the time. And he said, well, come on up. We just had a guy die from our IT department. So come on up for an interview. So I came up for an interview and they said, start work on Monday. And I didn't have any clothes so to go to work. So I found him. I had to travel back to Niagara Falls, where I'm from, and get all my stuff, bring it up back to Art's house. And then I stayed with Art a couple of days and then found a rooming house to live in. Anyway, that's my connection to Art. While there, I got to witness Art's wedding to Regis's sister, and I got to witness Regis's ordination. So we were kind of all there. It was kind of neat. So meanwhile, I had applied to a PhD program at the University of Maryland before I was leaving Joliet Catholic High School. And I never got any acceptance letters or anything. So here I am in Connecticut working for the State National Bank of Connecticut. And Dave Franzen sends me a letter that had showed up at Whitefriars to me, which was my acceptance to the University of Maryland. And so I opened it up, and I'm a year late already from when I got accepted. But I called them up and I said, hey, can I still come? They said, sure. Come on over. We'll give you an assistantship and a full ride. So come do it. So I did. So then I had to leave Art and the State National Bank of Connecticut and go to Maryland, Washington, D.C., and go to the University of Maryland. And then at University of Maryland, I rejoined Bob, who was there, Dave Walsh, and all the crowds from Washington, Bill Trahant, and John Mitchell, Seamus O'Halloran, they're all there, and they got together periodically. So we did. And I spent my time in graduate school during the Nixon years, counter-inaugural and all that stuff. And then Bob and Dave and I decided we were going to resettle out of Washington, and we picked Minneapolis. And so then that's actually how the three families got here. Anyway, sorry, a little long story, but anyway. I am married to a woman named Karen, and I had 2 daughters, and I have 4 grandsons, and the 4 grandsons are all soccer players. And today I had to go to, there are 3 games today. I went to 2 of them already, and there's 1 in progress right now. Anyway, keeps us active and so on. Career-wise, I had a pretty good 40-year run as a technologist. I spent a lot of time at the computer companies we have here in Minneapolis and tech firms, and then eventually transitioned to healthcare. I worked for about 8 different companies, all in kind of trying to find practical uses for advanced technology, namely artificial intelligence. And we were a little before our time in those years, but we were still plugging along, trying to do it, and we actually did it. So I had to be a consultant for the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, Defense Mapping Agency in the early years. And I was usually responsible for a group of researchers who were writing software to do practical things with artificial intelligence. So we did it for the Army, we did it for the Air Force, and several other agencies that I won't mention. And so it was a good run. Then gradually I transitioned into healthcare because I have a strong feeling that our healthcare system, computer and software wise, is way behind the curve of any other industries. And so I worked for United Healthcare particularly, and McKesson. And then at the same time, I became an adjunct professor at one of our local colleges here in Minneapolis called St. Thomas, University of St. Thomas. And that was primarily to, I taught the courses in artificial intelligence, but what I was really trying to do is recruit young graduate students to come work for the companies because we didn't have enough people in the companies I was working with at that time. So I did that for 10 years, professor. And then about 11 years ago, I just said, I'm retired, and I walked away and got off the grid, off the internet as much as I could, and said, I'm done with this. So then I've been spending my time with the grandkids. And we've helped out my daughters and families. The school that Bob was talking about in Africa was founded by my daughter and son-in-law. My son-in-law is from Tanzania. And so I spent about four different trips to Africa, helping with that school and so on. Karen and I have also traveled the world a lot too. We've been in many, many different countries, even Croatia, where you are, Art, I think, right? You're still in Croatia? Yeah. And so we've had a good life, and the grandkids are growing up, and we just keep as active as we possibly can. So thanks a lot. I'm sorry I couldn't show up for the other meetings because my schedule is so tight with family stuff that I just couldn't pull away.
Hey, you left out something. You left out something really interesting. Your hobby. You're a musician.
Yeah, I'm a photographer and a musician. Yeah, right. I sell fine art photography. And I actually just 2 nights ago was the first time a band that I'm in rehearsed after 2.5 years of pandemic, and it really felt good. I was a founder of this band back in 1977, so we're starting our 43rd year actually in the band. I play alto saxophone. So anyway, thanks, Reg. Okay,
great, and thank you, Dale. That was a great, very nice recollection and sharing of where you've been in the last few years. The other newcomer is Art Hill. He was a year behind us, and he was in the New York province, but he always said he identified more with our class than with his class. So some of us adopted him. So Art, I think you're still in there. Take it away.
I am sure here, Regis, thanks very much. And I'll just start by saying, first of all, Dale's absolutely right. I'm here in Croatia. I've been here for 5 years now and living in the city of Pula, Croatia, up in the northwest corner actually near the border with Italy, near Trieste. So it's a balmy 70 to something degree evening here in Pula. And It's great to be joining all of you on both sides of the Atlantic. Thanks again to Regis for organizing this chance to reconnect. I'll admit it's a little tough to summarize 50 years since I transferred from Niagara to Boston University in 4 minutes, but I'll take a shot at it anyway. Boston was good to Regis' sister and me. We met, we were married 32 years and have 2 daughters now in their 40s. There were some losses and heartbreaks along the way, but many, many blessings. The biggest blessing has been the good health of our family members. So my heart goes out to my lifelong friends who haven't been so fortunate. I got an MBA after my English language and literature bachelor's, so I wouldn't have to serve macchiatos at McDonald's or Starbucks. And then I went to banking after, as Dale mentioned, after a very short stint in the Air Force pilot training program. But for some reason, they didn't want me to have a hay fever sneezing fit flying in one of their expensive machines. So, hey, it worked for me. I didn't have to go to Nam. So I became a management trainee here at that Connecticut bank, but was so bad at retail banking that they quickly transferred me into data systems. And that felt so good that I spent the next 30 years in software development, project management, hardware and software sales, from international organizations to my own companies, publishing PC software and technical docs for the semiconductor industry from Maynard, Massachusetts to Taiwan. So I have to thank Dale Panton for introducing me to artificial intelligence long before it was cool. Dale, you probably remember the hurricane where our 2 cars, the 2 couples drove down to Washington, and that might have been for you to go to the university down there. But we camped out for one night in a hotel, and we almost spent the whole night talking about virtual learning. And I mean, this was rocket science. It was science fiction. So thanks for that introduction, and it served me well all these years. So our family lived in a 19th century house on a hill in Connecticut, a rancher in Tucson with desert landscaping near Saguaro National Monument, a Mormon neighborhood with houses nobody could afford in a Phoenix suburb, rentals in Palos Verdes above LA, and Los Gatos in Silicon Valley. Then it was off to a little ranch with horses in Spokane, Washington, and finally a quiet suburb in Pendleton, Oregon. I spent 15 years in Pendleton as vice president of a community college serving 15,000 square miles of rural Eastern Oregon. But the latest move was the biggest. After visiting and making a zillion friends in Croatia for 10 years, I retired in 2016 to the city of Pula here in Istria County. And now I'm back where I started, living in a 19th century house. The difference is that I'm a 10-minute bike ride from my sailboat on the Adriatic Sea, and that suits me just fine. So common threads along the way, been family, teaching, sailing, the years of humanitarian projects with Rotary International. But I found my roots in Croatia since my mother and grandparents migrated from nearby Slovakia just before the First World War. This mix of cultures, languages, trades, traditions here makes me feel right at home. And national healthcare gives me a little peace of mind. There are lots of beautiful places in this world, but this place is sacred to me for much more than its natural beauty. I'm not wealthy by any measure, but I am rich in friends and the place I now call home. So I'll hope you will all consider a visit. The light's always on, and the good ship Mir, or Tranquility in Croatian, is waiting.
In Russian, it's peace.
Yes. Well, peace, tranquility, calm, Mir, and it's always ready to waiting for you to sail with me. So you're welcome. Thanks for the chance to get together again.
Thanks, Artie. It's great to have you. Dale Panton, this one's for you. It was talking about, all this virtual stuff, and you were talking about artificial intelligence. I don't know if guys in our novitiate class are going to remember this, but when we were reading, whatever we were reading, spiritual stuff, you were reading something I remember is called cybernetics. I may be wrong, but you don't want to admit that, do you?
It's psycho-cybernetics, yeah.
Yeah, psycho-cybernetics.
Yes.
There you go. That was out of my league. I had no idea. I read that book, but I had no idea what it was about.
Yeah.
It was pretty good spiritual reading, though. All right, so excuse me. Tom Bond just entered the meeting. I want to go to Louis, and it's out of alphabetical order, but I do want to go to Louis because Louis has offered to do something really special for us, and that is to collect the profiles on each of us. So Louis, do you want to make that pitch before we continue?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I think I sent everyone the directory that was completed in 2013 when we had the Chicago reunion. So I sent that to everyone that I can remember and made kind of instructions if you could simply take that Word document and then update it however you want, preferably in a Word doc. If you can convert it from an Apple document, it'd be easier than what I'll do is simply take the, I already updated the new one and I've got some people coming in, so I'll just update it and then send it out to everyone once I get everyone's completed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lou. Thanks very much for doing that.
Yeah.
So I
By
had,
the way,
One question,
I-
Lou, what timeline are you looking at as far as
no
getting?
timeline. I mean, in the next 50 years. I
Before we
have
all
to
pass.
comment, when I went back to read some of that and hearing the profiles of everybody, I'm just so impressed with the talent that this particular class had. And I don't remember, maybe Kevin can help us. I don't know if there's any other class at Carmel that was as bright, articulate, dynamic, athletic as this particular class was. So anyone can help me with that. I think it's just honored to be part of this group.
yeah, well, thank you for providing that service, Lou. And you could have said you have to have it in by Monday, but anyway. We're going to go now up to Phil, but I had sent a list around to everybody of, I don't know, a bunch of possible topics that we might focus on so that we don't just drift or we get bored with each other. And I thought maybe remembering different things would help fill in some of the holes in my memory. I mean, I think my memory right now is like Swiss cheese. So what I suggested is like going way, way back to 1959 or 1960, Kevin, when you came in, and sharing with us very briefly our recollections of the first day at either Hamilton or Niagara. Phil Olson, you're on.
All right. My memory of the first day is blank, unfortunately. I can't actually remember that. Of course, I was the local yokel, which believe it or not, very early, we were assigned to get up in front of everybody and give a speech. I think it was my freshman year, and I was assigned the topic of being a local yokel. At that time, I didn't know what a yokel was, so I sat there for, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes prior to standing up in front of everybody, absolutely paralyzed with fear, trying to figure out what a yokel was. And then when I got up to the podium and asked what a yokel was, and they said, well, you're right here from Wenham. I said, oh, okay. And then I blurted some nonsense out for a few minutes, but I was beat red with embarrassment because I had no clue what I was doing. My other early recollection at Hamilton was the swimming pool. When we would first get there in September, we would be able to go swimming in that swimming pool, and that was kind of nice. As far as at Niagara, because as I think everybody realizes, I left Hamilton in my junior year, and then I returned at Niagara for first year of college. I don't remember the first day back, but I do remember lying in bed at night, looking out the window and seeing the lights play on Niagara Falls. I thought that was kind of cool. And then going on the hikes with Dave Abrams and Joe Piva, and we'd sneak across into New York. I wasn't 18 yet, so I don't remember whether I had a false ID or just bluffed my way, because we would go into the bars and get a drink, of course, since it was only 18 in New York. But I had very many happy memories of my times at both Hamilton and in Niagara. And then when I finally decided that I was not, didn't feel I was cut out to be a priest, it just wasn't the right fit for me. So second semester at Niagara was when I left. I think it was probably around March. And then I just kind of drifted away from everybody for all these years. And I was thrilled a few years ago when I made contact through Dave Abrams, and then made some Facebook connections. And I went to that reunion that Tom hosted here in Boston. I guess it was 3 years ago, and got a chance to reconnect with several of you. I thought that was great. So that's all I have for now. I'll let the podium shift now to somebody else.
Okay, thanks, Phil. What we used to do when we crossed the bridge and we were underage, we went to one of our classmates' house who lived in Niagara Falls, New York. I won't mention the name, but I think most of you can figure it out. Mike Beener, you're up, my friend. Take it away. Turn your microphone on. There you
got
go.
it up. Okay. Greetings to everybody. Great to see everybody. You want me to talk about my first day?
Yeah, your first memories of when you showed up at Niagara.
Well, the thing I remember the most, that first day, I think I got there a little early compared to some others. And Dave Abrams was in the gym shooting jump shots or whatever it was, kind of shots we did those. And he had a yellow basketball, which I'd never seen one in that color. And so I kind of worked my way in, and I'd shoot, he'd shoot. And all I remember, I think we spent 2 or 3 hours shooting baskets. So I said, well, that's going to be fun. You know, just get my shot better while I'm here. Other than that, it's just awful hard to, you know, I remember everything, but nothing sticks out the first day.
Michael, Bob Wechter here. Did you and I share bunk beds the first year? I think so.
It could be, Bob.
That's what I remember. I remember you were on the, and I'm not sure who was on top or bottom, but I kind of remember you, because that was always interesting to me, the way you wrapped up all your toiletries and raced to the John in the morning. And I was first, and you slept late and got in second. I think that's.
I didn't even have that much hair to have to cut either. What I do remember, speaking of, I remember being in the alcove, my bunk bed. I was in the upper bed, and it was in the alcove in the part that had the fire destroyed. And just like you said, I was laying on my side watching. First, there was a big Piers beer sign that kept changing color, red to white, red to white. And then you got to see the falls change colors. I think it was the American Falls that we were looking at. And it was beautiful. I tell people that, you know, that was my high school dormitory experience. They said, what? But I remember after so many hikes, or, you know, the walks that we had, eventually you got bored where you took shortcuts to avoid the falls, because that was a longer path. But I just had great. One thing, it'd be fun, I'll just share this. At Carmel and Niagara, it was just such, I think it was the influence of the Frauders and everything, but you just felt like you were in this holy place. And, you know, it sort of made you think, gee, I better, you know, be a fairly holy person myself. And then I got to Hamilton, and it was a mass or something, it was mass, yes. It was the first day back, and I was back about 3/4 of the way. And the fellas that were the class before or after us, they were ahead of us. They had light brown jackets on, I remember. And they were going underneath the pews and sneaking up on each other and goosing the guy in front of them. And I saw, boy, what a change from Carmel, where everybody's praying and quiet. And then here I got people jumping around, goosing each other in church. So There was definitely a different atmosphere. So,
I'm glad you didn't mention any names.
no, I was,
Okay, Mike, thanks very much. We're going to go down to Tucson, Arizona, and Bob Clark.
Again, hi to everyone. It's good to see everyone again. I was just thinking about, I actually should be not in this class. I should have been in Kevin McBride's class. But when I graduated, I went to a parochial school, and maybe I told you some of this before, so it's a repeat, in Newark, New Jersey. I lived in the city of Newark, and I went to St. Benedict's. And after I graduated 8th grade, that summer, I was in a riding my bicycle back from a city pool. I actually was on the bike with another young man, and we were hit by a drunk driver, came up on the sidewalk. And I frankly got thrown, I guess, about 20 feet away. And I went unconscious. And then I remember waking up and some woman was wiping my face because I was bleeding from the nose. And I had severely broken my right leg. It was actually twisted all around. I had a break in the femur bone badly. And I had some internal injury. And frankly, I almost died. But anyway, they saved my life. And I was in the hospital in traction for 4 months with my leg up in the air. I guess this is the way they did it in the old days. They put a pin through my leg. I was in traction for 4 months and couldn't turn over. And I got a lot of bed sores and I got very depressed. So I was happy when I got out of there. And I obviously didn't go to school that year. I got out like in December from the hospital. And for some reason, I remember then going up to Hamilton on a bus. They would have these tours to Hamilton. The other Quentin Duncan used to come to the local parochial schools and give talks. And you could go up to, I think it was St. Cecilia's, and you could take a bus up to the seminary in Hamilton to spend 2 weeks there. And Bob Donnelly, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, weren't you and I on one of those trips even before before I joined the class? I remember that distinctly. We had a good time together. And I was very impressed by Hamilton, more by the pool up there, because all I'd been doing is going to city pools and living in a city. And I just loved the hills and the countryside and just everything about the place. And I almost think I joined the Carmelites, became a seminarian because of the location than wanting the reason. So, and I remember I was really happy to be there the first year with Bob and the other classmates, of the class. And I just felt it was wonderful. I had a little bit of a tough time acclimating myself because I had been away from school for a whole year. So it was a little bit tough for me to get back into the rhythm of the things. But I just loved the regimentation, believe it or not. I enjoyed the regimentation. I enjoyed being free enough to walk around. I was still recuperating from the leg injury. So that to me was, I remember the first day getting there, how happy I was. My dad drove me up to Hamilton, and I was going there now to be a student, not just to visit. And after having missed a year's worth of school, I was happy to be there. And then as far as Niagara goes, one of the things I remember is when I first got there, Joe Piva and I did not get along. Joe Piva and I, who became one of my best friends, God bless his soul, he and I started out not as good friends. I think we were arguing over who had the alcove, who owned the alcove. Did I have first dibs or did he have first dibs on the alcove? But thank God, later on, we became, as I say, lifelong friends. God rest his soul. I still think of him, and I keep in contact with Karen. Matter of fact, this reminds me to probably give her a call and see how she's doing. So anyway, those are my two first recollections.
Thanks,
Bob,
Mike.
I remember your leg, and I was always impressed that because I remember that whole story and how bad an accident you had been in. But you know, I was at Hamilton, not an athlete, but you were very athletic. In spite of the leg, you were very, very athletic, and I was very impressed by that. You know, we all had forced sports activities. We had to play touch football and basketball, and of course, I was the little guy that got run over by everybody. You know, Larry Tice used to stomp all over me when I was trying to play football there. And but I do remember your leg, and I was impressed by what a great athlete you were in spite of it.
I'm surprised you remember me as a great athlete because this leg is about 1.25 inches shorter than my left leg. And I wear prosthesis inside and it's built up on the outside. And it, over the years, has caused me more back pain. But I was kind of a gimpy athlete, you might say.
But nonetheless, you still did well.
Thank you. Well, tried anyway.
Hey, Bob, I remember because we, I guess, joined as from Niagara and juniors. I'd never heard that story before of your injury. But I do remember you had a gimp, you had a limp, a little bit of a limp.
Yeah.
I do remember that, but I never knew why.
Yeah, it was from that
story.
Yeah, it was because the orthopedic, they couldn't do it as well as they do it these days. They had me in traction, and because it was broken in 5 places in the femur, they couldn't get it straightened out properly. So they could, you know.
Okay, well, thanks to both of you for the three of you for the memories. We're going to go to Brian Cody now.
Okay, does anybody hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm using my telephone because I'm not at home right now. I think I told Reggie earlier I'm going to be up near the Boston area. And I didn't have access to the internet earlier. I finally got it, and that's why I got in late. First recollection of Niagara Falls. I can remember my mom and dad driving me down from Simcoe to Niagara Falls, 2-hour drive. And we got to the college there, and we entered the door of the part of the building that's now gone, where the old parlors used to be and the old grand piano. And I can remember my mom and dad walking me down that corridor, and we met Father Malachi. And of course, you know, back in those days, I was about 4'0" and weighed about 35 pounds. I was very, very small. And I can, to this day, I can remember Father Malachi saying, "That's okay, Mr. and Mrs. Cote, we'll fatten them up." Well, that didn't work very well because I was small and skinny for the last, 4 years after that. But I remember that scene is vivid in my mind. And the other thing I remember, and it must have taken place probably within the first week of being at Niagara, I had no idea of the rules or what we were supposed to do or schedule or anything, except we were supposed to go to class. We went to class. And after class, and I guess I didn't read the note very well, we were supposed to go to study hall there by the side of the chapel. Well, this other friend of mine who came to seminary with me, Bob Kowalski, he and I didn't realize this. So after the last class, we ran upstairs to the dorm, changed our clothes, ran downstairs down outside to the baseball or football field, wherever it was. And we were out there kind of messing around. We said, "Isn't this funny? Nobody else is here. I wonder where everybody else is." So we would gingerly walk back up to the building, and there we saw through the windows all these guys in the study hall with a frater up there in the front. So we decided, you know what? I think we missed something. So we snuck around to the back and came in the back and tried to find a couple of seats, and the frater spotted us, pointed to us, and did the finger, "Come here." He made us go up to the front. "Where were you guys?" "We were outside playing. We didn't know it was time we didn't know study hall." So he says, "Well, go to your seats there and kneel out." So that was my first experience at all with study hall, was kneeling out. That was interesting.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, and I'm with you because I don't remember Bob Clark. I don't remember that story about you, but I do remember that how you had a little limp, and nobody seemed to didn't bother anybody, didn't talk about it or anything like that. We just accepted you for who you were. And thanks for sharing that story with us.
Okay, Brian, thank you. We're going to go back to Minneapolis. Bob Donnelly.
So I did know about Bob's injury because he did talk about it, and I do remember him in those early summer school, those advertisements that they did for the seminary by bringing us up to the up there and letting us have lots of pop and cookies and movies and playtime. And that was the front page. My dad, like Bob's dad, brought me up there and dropped me off and drove away. And at age 13, I'm not sure what I thought I was doing, but I do remember and have a very powerful memory of a lot of anxiety. And it probably mixed a little bit with immediate homesickness. And I remember walking by myself over to the now infamous ski hill and sitting there and looking over what I think is an extraordinary, I'm sure today is quite still an extraordinary view of that whole valley area and that satellite that was out there and that tiny speck of the ocean. And thinking that somehow I was in a world way bigger than the world I'd left at my home. But the second piece of that memory is that we seem to immediately have fun. I don't know that why wouldn't we have fun? A bunch of 13-year-old boys, all of whom had had way more energy than the clergy wanted us to have. And they all try to channel that like crazy into the league games and into every possible energy source they could find. But we sure did find a lot of opportunity, at least I did, and I'm sure that many of you remember as well, to get in about as much trouble as we could. And it was, I think that one of the biggest pieces of glue I had, especially in those early days, was the friendliness, the warmth, the camaraderie, and the easy access to play that we had when we weren't doing our studies. And so that's my very first memory, a combination of homesickness, anxiety, and immediate connection with a lot of people who were like myself. We never called ourselves very gifted or talented. Those were not names we ever gave ourselves. But the energy that we immediately shared with each other is still palpable to me. And it was a powerful, as much as anything I learned from the classes, it was that sort of give and take that I think has been part of my life ever since. And
Yeah,
I'm very grateful for that gift.
Thanks for that, Bob. And I'll just piggyback on that quickly. Earlier, Lou Horvath said that he thought that our class was really special, and nobody chimed in. But Murray Phelan, who everybody knew that went through Niagara, I was stationed with him, and he said, and it was many years later, that he felt that our class was the best class that ever went through there. We were kind of like a Renaissance group, as Lou pointed out, there so many talents, so many interests. Most of you guys did a whole lot better than I did in school. But I've had other Carmelites, older ones, tell me the same thing, that our class was really special, and I certainly felt that way. We're going to go over to Guy Gramala now. Guy, take it away.
Okay, I don't have too many things. One of my first memories of going to Niagara, we got out the train and we're going upstairs to the dorm. We're all climbing up, and there's another guy climbing down. He didn't even make it to the first day. I thought that was kind of interesting. And that kind of stuck in my mind too. Other than that, I kind of went through, followed the rules, didn't get in too much trouble. Good experience, I think. With Niagara, I really liked the place. In fact, when I was stationed with a brother, it was interesting because the area that got burned down, that's where I used to live. So not too pleasant. Don't have a lot of vivid memories. I mean, I just kind of went with the flow. Occasionally, I kind of goofed off. One thing comes to mind, in the sophomore year, we were doing dishes in the evening. So we got all done and went to get our shirt and jacket. They were gone. We had to be in study hall. So there were the three of us. We had t-shirts, put on a tie, and walked in the study hall. The front in charge didn't think that was too funny. But, that's about it for my goofing off. At Hamilton, the first year first year there, or junior year, that was not too much. I do remember I don't know if you guys remember Skip Tezak from our class. Well, he and Eddie Spalding were the outdoorsmen. Remember, they went near the swamp and built a trap for a raccoon. They were successful. The trap was torn apart in little pieces, so obviously a raccoon would through that. Had memories of the great Snow Hill disaster when the younger classmen, I don't know if you remember, they went down and 3 of them were actually injured. Actually, one ended up splitting his pelvis. And then obviously they closed the ski hill down, which made sense. I think that's about it. I can't really think of too much. That's about it for me.
Okay, thank you, Guy. We're going down to Pennsylvania now. Lou Horvath.
Okay, thank you, Reggie. I had a delayed vocation because I didn't come in until sophomore year. And I have 3 things to kind of say that is very interesting, because I was in the coal towns of Pennsylvania public school system. And I decided after Christmas that year I was going to be a Catholic priest. So I applied to the Altoona Johnstown Diocese, not to the Carmelites. And I completed a very lengthy application. And it took months to review. But in the meantime, I started during the summer going to Mass every day at the local parish, which was Hungarian. And another seminarian by the name of John Sordas, who was ordained, we would meet each other and he said, "Any word yet from the diocese?" And I kept saying no. And he said, "I think the Carmelites want you." And that was my introduction. So he invited me down to New Baltimore novitiate. I spent the day there and I met with Father Robert and Father Humphrey. And at the end of the day, he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I like it." He said, "Why don't you come here?" And I said, "Okay, I think I will. Give me the papers." And Father Robert, he said, "No, you're in." I said, "Well, Father, I have to fill out something." He said, "No, you're in. I know you and your mom and your dad." So the second thing that was interesting, I was supposed to go to Hamilton because of my location. But I was also supposed to repeat freshman year because of that little thing called Latin. And Father Robert was insistent. I think he talked to Father Murray and Niagara and said, "Hey, go to Niagara, get one of the older frats to tutor you in Latin." So Father Cuthbert taught me Latin for a year. So there was about those 3 issues which are so remarkable in my first year. The other thing I'd like to say in closing, if you recall the Auxilium Latinum test that we took at Hamilton, I scored 118 out of 120, even though I was supposed to be kept back because of Latin in my freshman year. So that was my first year experience.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Lou. We're going to go out to Arizona now. Kevin Leafy.
That was another delayed vocation. So I joined in sophomore year at Hamilton. And a few weeks before we went, I got a note, and I suppose everybody in New England, the New England sophomores.
Kevin, let me interrupt. I don't think you have your camera on. I think you have it turned off. We can hear you, but can't see you. Down on you. There. No, I'm looking now and I still don't see you. There you are. Okay. Take it away, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh yeah, it's not coming down. Anyway, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, I went a couple weeks before we were supposed to go. I got a letter, and everybody from New England must have gotten it, that the sophomores from New England, we needed to go earlier, a few days earlier, to get the place ready for sophomore year, get the whole place ready. So when I got there, first thing they told me I didn't really have to come because that was my first year, but I was there. And I wasn't there more than an hour or two, and everybody was telling me about Pat Gleason, how horrible he was, and everything else about Pat Gleason. So I was really scared about meeting this Pat Gleason. And that evening after dinner, we were in the corridor going back to wherever, to the dorms, I guess. But anyway, there was a bunch of us in the corridor, and the lights weren't on, and it was dark. And I bumped into a glass showcase that was in the corridor, and the whole thing broke. And I 2 minutes later, I was the only one there. Everybody ran. And I'm standing there with all this broken glass, and who comes down the corridor but Pat Gleason? And it was just, what an experience. But he was really good about it. He was more angry at whoever left the whole thing out there in the corridor, and he really wasn't angry at me. So that was my first day at Hamilton. The other thing, some of you guys were mentioning seeing the lights across the river from Niagara. And the one I always remember is O'Keefe Beer and Ale. And it used to go back and forth, O'Keefe Beer, O'Keefe Ale. Anyway, that's my story.
Thanks for sharing that. We're going to go back to Minneapolis now and Dale Panton.
I'm from Niagara Falls, New York, so I just had to go across the river to get to Niagara. And I don't remember the first day very well at all, but I do remember some early things, like the nuns who fed us. And I remember bread line. Every day we were out, playing touch football or skating, playing hockey in the winter and stuff. We'd come in the afternoon for our 2 pieces of bread, and we all had peanut butter that our moms had sent us usually in the mail. And so we put the peanut butter, half an inch thick on the bread, and that was our snack. And then the dinners sometimes were a bit questionable. We had stewed tomatoes quite often, which I don't think many of us liked very much. I do remember this little game we used to play at Niagara at the table. There were 6 of us sitting in the refectory at a table. And every week we had a runner assigned, who would go to the kitchen and bring the food to the table. And we found out that if we sent the runner back a second time, we get twice as much. So what we used to do then is on Saturday, sometimes we used to get French fries. Really, really great. And so one Saturday, we sent our runner back with this bowl full of what looked like French fries. And he came running back to the table, dumped the bowl on the first plate, and then went back immediately for seconds to get another bowl, came back with the other bowl. And so then we had 2 bowls, the equivalent of 2 bowls that we started passing around. And somebody started eating one of those French fries and found out it was rutabaga. Bob and Larry, I don't know if you remember that, but that was some other things.
I remember
First day
rutabaga, the only time in my life I've ever been served it.
Yeah, right. First day at Hamilton, I showed up with all my ham radio equipment because I had heard about Regis had a radio room in the basement at Hamilton. Happened to be right under Pat Gleason's office and bedroom. So I set up all my equipment and so on. And gradually we had fun. Bob Zahn was a ham too. And then we had a classmate named Steve Tyler. I'm sure you remember Steve. And besides the ham radio, we used that radio room for some other shady purposes like crafting wine out of fruit. And so one day we made some banana wine. And we didn't have anywhere to store it while the fermentation was going on and so on. So across the hall in the basement from the radio room, there was a row of lockers that weren't being used. So we shoved our gallon jug full of banana wine in the bottom of one of those lockers. And then we forgot about it. And it eventually blew up. So Pat Gleason kind of disciplined us a little bit for smearing banana all over the basement. And not only that, it was alcohol. So anyway, those are my memories.
All right, thanks, Dale. Well, there's a continuation of that distilling of alcohol that we continued under your tutelage at Niagara, but that'll be later for a fire story. We'll get back to it then. Thanks, Dale. We're going to go to France. We're crossing the Atlantic to Larry Tice. Welcome, Larry.
Yeah, it's a little after 10 here in sunny Provence. My story of starting in Niagara was that my older brother, was an aspiring actor and wanted to go to New York to see some plays. And so my dad, instead of my getting on the train, my dad drove him and me and Jack Welchins, who was from my parish in Chicago and started with us at Niagara, to Niagara. I showed up in the afternoon and saw Dave Franzen and Jimmy Topper playing baseball on the baseball field. And I had met them at the Carmel Niagara, summer camp like the year before. And so I knew them. So I ran out and we started playing baseball right away. Meanwhile, my dad was trying to say goodbye. And so it was like, okay, goodbye, Dad. So he went on. Of course, 20 years later, I learned from my brother, my dad broke into tears all the way to New York because I was only 13 years old. I was the youngest person in our class, you may recall, some of you. And so it was very hard for him to leave me there, but I was fine playing baseball with those guys. That was not as bad as like 30 some years later when I was at Thanksgiving dinner with my family. And I looked at my mother and I said, why did you guys ever let me go away when I was 13 years old? And she burst into tears. We didn't want you to go. But of course, that was the, times. If you said you were touched by the calling, there was no standing in the way. One of the Irish Catholic kids from every Chicago family had to study for the priesthood. So anyway, that's my story of starting in Niagara. Just a couple follow-ups on things. Bob Kowalski, Brian, was my roommate, the bunk bed. And now I know why he left after a week, if he had to kneel up the first day, because he was gone in no time at all. And speaking of people who were gone, Guy Gramala, Gary Bowman was the name of the guy who was coming down the stairs when we were going up. I don't know why I remember that, but he was walking out the door. And Art, is he still on there somewhere?
Yeah.
I have been to Pula. It's a beautiful city many years ago. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Hey, how's the painting going?
Good. Actually, I did something for you today, Reg, that, to bring you back to the Northeast in the fall. It's like Eastern Massachusetts, Eastern Massachusetts or Maine, whatever. I was thinking of you today. Yeah, I'm still doing a lot of watercolors. It's what I spend a lot of my time doing over here and in Denver.
That's great, Larry. Thanks so much. We're going to come back to New England, the Boston area. Tom Bond.
Hi, everyone.
There
Sorry
you
I'm
go.
late. For some reason, I didn't get the invitation, but I called Lou on the telephone and he sent me the link. Thank
You
you.
didn't
Lou.
get the invitation.
No,
Oh, well, I'm going to have
couldn't find
to.
it.
I got to check the list.
So I thought maybe it had gone to my AOL account.
No.
I checked both accounts, but it wasn't there. And I wasn't going to call Russia. So I said, I'll call Lou. So thank you. So memories. Well, some people have gone back before they went to Hamilton or Niagara, so I can do that too. Like, well, there was just my mother and myself. My father had been killed in World War II. We were a Gold Star family. I was a sole surviving son. And that's why I didn't go to Vietnam when I left Niagara. When I left from Louisville, the war was still going on. There was still a draft, but my status was 4A. So I didn't get drafted. But anyway, so we lived in an Augustinian parish. I don't know if that's the same parish as Kevin, who's the priest from Lawrence?
I don't know, you were in St. Mary's, right?
Yeah, Augustinians. Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, I was going to go to Staten Island. That's where their junior seminary was. I don't know where the novitiate was. So I was all set to go. I had the Notre Dame nuns. And I was like, I don't know, around 6th or 7th grade. I got identified as going to be a priest. So I was a good boy for all those for all the people. And there was a thing called the Knights of Altar. We had to take a test. So it was a Knights of Altar, and we only lived across the street from the church. So whenever they needed an extra altar boy, they called me up and said, "Can you come in, Tom?" It was Tommy. And so I was very close to all the Augustinians. And then my mother read the Pilot, which is the newspaper for the Archdiocese of Boston. And the Carmelites would run family retreats at Hamilton in the summertime. Father Lambert Ure, I think it was, that ran them. So my mother said, let's go down to Hamilton for a week and for a retreat. I said, fine. I was like some of the others that said, I guess it was Bob, about the landscape. It was a great place to be. So I think we went 2 years, and that's where I met Bill Franklin and his parents. They also went to those retreats. So then I signed up, didn't go to the Augustinians, went to the Carmelites. And the first day, I don't remember, my mother drove down, we went down Route 114, Route 62 over to Hamilton, and she dropped me off. I remember that summer going to a Jewish tailor, get a suit. That they had sent us a list, and they said everything's black. I got black shoes, black socks, and I got a black suit. And I think we had to have a trunk. They sent us all these requirements. And then so my mother did that all. And then when I took the car, we took the trunk out, and then we went to the dorm. And that was the first time I'd ever slept away from my mother. I was never in the Boy Scouts. I never did sleepovers with anybody. Had no brothers and sisters. So I guess I was a little homesick. And that was an adventure of living in the dorm in a bunk bed. And I remember responding to the bell immediately in the morning to run into the sink area so you could claim a sink. So you could spend a little extra time. If you had to wait, I didn't want to wait in the door for somebody to leave. And the other thing I remember is my mother gave me the seminary told her to do this. Back in those days, you could buy an aluminum suitcase with straps, and you put your laundry in it. And then you brought the laundry over to the side, the door that Father Canisius used to use. That was the door we used to go out when we did calisthenics. And that was like the male entry. And you put your these aluminum boxes, they must have been about 8 or 10 inches deep and about 1.5 feet wide. And they had 2 straps around them, and then they had a little area where you could put the address. So we send our laundry home every 2 weeks, I guess, and then it would come back all done. I remember that. That was kind of. Oh, the other thing I remember is mail call. There was a little in the refectory in Hamilton, underneath the chapel. There was an elevated area off to the side of the dining room, in the dining room, and I guess that's where you could have speakers, or you could have extra. You could put some tables there so people could be a little bit higher and they could see us while we're eating. But that's where Father Vincent would go after dinner. He would have the mail, and he'd call off your name, and then he'd toss the mail out into the crowd, and then you'd get it.
Opened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, open.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I might think of some other things later, but the thing about Niagara was after we went home, after we graduated from Hamilton, we went home that summer. That was the summer between senior year and then freshman year at Niagara. And I guess a lot of the guys, like Bill Franklin, myself, I forget who the others were, we decided to take the Greyhound bus to Niagara so we could take trunks. You could put a trunk on the bus as your luggage. So I remember that. That was a terrible. I think we left Boston around 6 at night. I remember pulling into like Albany, and then we pulled into Utica, and then Syracuse, Rochester, and we got to Buffalo. And I don't know how we got to Niagara. Maybe I went to Niagara too, but we got off on the New York side. So then we had to cross the border, and then there was a refectory, like associated with the Canadian parks, and it was open because it was like 8 o'clock in the morning now. So I remember we went in and we were waiting for the truck to come from the college, and we were going to put all our trunks on the truck, and then they were going to bring us over to the seminary. And I had a honeydew donut and a cup of hot coffee. I remember that so vividly because I was so washed out. I didn't get any sleep on that bus ride that day or that evening. And then the truck brought us over to the Niagara, Mount Carmel, and then I guess somebody helped us with the trunks, and we brought them up to our dorm area. I was in the dorm on the non-fire side. I guess it might have been the newer side. I think the fire side might have been the oldest part of the building. And we were on the third or fourth floor in the dorms. We put our lockers, our trunks, I think at the end of our bed. Those are my first memories of Hamilton and Niagara.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
We're good.
Tom, I remember that, the family retreats at the Hamilton, because my family had gone there for 2 years, with Father Lambert and everything. And that was why I chose to become a Carmelite, when I was moved to the call, because we had wonderful experiences, at least 2 summers, if not 3 summers, before I ever started at Hamilton. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go out to, I guess, sunny, smoky California. Bob Wechter.
Yeah. Smoky is not so bad here in LA. It's up north. It's a problem, I guess. So far, anyway. I'm still waiting for my short-term memory to decline and my long-term memory to get enhanced, because it's nice to hear. I'm glad I was more at the tail end, because all these little memories are triggering, little responses. I don't have a specific remembrance of day one. But I do recall, and maybe Larry knows the priest, the Carmelite priest from Chicago who promoted a weekend retreat or something. Armand.
Armand Mayville. Yeah.
Armand, yes. And he got me and another guy from my local Catholic grade school to go up to Niagara for, I guess a long weekend, I think. And my class from St. John, Indiana had 12 kids in it. So I was ready for an adventure. I'm not sure I ever necessarily wanted to become a priest, but I was ready to go somewhere. and Niagara was my first road trip. And I think my mom drove me up there. I don't have any particular remembrance of the first day, but I do remember our class, and I think how I learned this, I'm not sure. It was maybe from a frauder. I believe it was a frauder. One of the frauders later in the year recalled that they were afraid to raise their voice with our class because our class was so homesick. They thought everybody would leave. and so they were careful with us, at least for the first, I don't know, half a year, I suppose. What I do remember, Jimmy Topper and I, for some reason or other, were picked to be barbers. We cut the hair of everybody, freshman and sophomore year in Niagara. And I think it continued over. We at Hamilton. And I remember particularly learning how to do with a flat top. And John Mitchell was really picky. He had to have that flat top just right. And then that in Niagara. Let's see, going to Hamilton, I remember when, for some reason, I don't know when we got outfitted for the Blazers, but the Blazers with the emblem on them was a big deal. Was that junior year or was that senior year? I don't quite remember.
Senior year.
Was it senior? The senior year Blazers was a big deal. Okay. And of course, I remember the Passion Play because I was on the costume crew, the annual Passion Play at Hamilton. Let's see, Niagara, goodness. Dale had a lot of memories there at the old cafeteria. I remember, for whatever reason, Navy Log.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a meatloaf or some kind or another, whatever they put in it. Yeah. And bets were always made in desserts. And they had good desserts and bad desserts. And you could bet and trade and pay up in desserts. I remember that part in the cafeteria at Niagara. And then another cafeteria memory was at Hamilton. Was it Father Walsh? Who was the head?
Coleman
Walsh. Right. Coleman. My mother had sewn a couple of corduroy jackets for me and sent them along. And I had a corduroy jacket that she made. And I got thrown out of the cafeteria because colors were too bright. It was kind of a brownish, yellowish, kind of, it was too bright. And I had to get out of the cafeteria and take it off at that time. And Tom reminded me that I still have a trunk. And the only time I've ever used that trunk was my days in the seminary. And I still have it in the garage. And I'm sorry, guys, but I have to go pick up a set of keys that I lost, and I have to get it by 2 p.m. and it's 1:30. So I'm going to have to leave you guys right now, but because I need the keys, and I just tracked them down this morning. So we'll see you all again next time. Sean George was going to be here. What happened with him, Reg?
He was traveling from Pennsylvania to New York, but there's a Notre Dame game on, and I think that may have conflicted a bit.
Okay. All right. I remember I visited with him many years ago in LA. He had visited him when he was doing he was on the speaking circuit at one day. Right. Promotional speakers. Yeah.
He'll be with us. He'll be with us the next time if Notre Dame is not playing at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thanks, Bob.
Take care, Bob.
And
Bye-bye.
now we're going to Pula in Croatia and Artie Hill.
Okay, there we go. Every one of your comments brought immediate memories back. It's like they're just popping like fireworks here. Laundry boxes. I mean, that was how you got not only got clean clothes, that's how you got the peanut butter and the Mars bars, and you name it. But that's how that was the link to home, to the supply base from the gym. I remember the not only passion plays but also performances that we had there, and Regis and I and Dale, I think, all did like tech support or sound and lights. And one year we just had to break through the wall on the back of the gym in order to put a window so that we could see the play and pick up the cues on when to come in with lights or sound. So those were my memories. I remember an art exhibit that we had there too by the Vobelis family, and there was artwork all over the gym. Bike crashes, boy, I can't claim one anywhere near as good as Bob, but mine occur regularly. I mean, I have to carry a first aid kit in my backpack every time I motor out in the traffic here. Then rural experience of Hamilton, and we had of course our own minor sem in St. Albert's in Middletown, New York. And I remember having gone up there for the first time. My experience of recruitment was our young parish priest, Leo Maynard, and he had a brand new 57 Chevy when that was the coolest rod on earth. And we hit 110 miles an hour on the New York State Freeway going up to visit St. Albans. So if anybody can relate to that, I don't know, but that's what it clued off to me. Oil painting, Larry, you mentioned that you're doing this watercolor, and I did a big panoramic oil painting while we were in Williamstown of the mountains right outside the window of the rec room. So boy, thanks for the memories on that one. And as far as before the Carmelites, who else introduced me to the priesthood studies was the Edmondites, and they were in Connecticut. And I remember spending a weekend or a week 4-day or something like that with them. And I already knew the Carmelites. I knew several because I'd been up to our minor sem. And I'm nothing against Edmondites. I hope nobody here has any relatives who's an Edmondite, but there was just so much more with the Carms. And to this day, I remember that it made my decision easier than ever before that I would join the Carms instead of going to the Edmondites. I do remember Navy Log, but I also remember the hockey games in the rec room after the fire downstairs underneath the classrooms. And I don't know if you remember that, but watching TV down there with the hockey games and movies, stuff, those are the things I remember about, not only the minor sem, but then Niagara as well. So thanks for the memories, guys. Believe me, it was unbelievable. And the trip's just starting.
Thanks, Art. I'll finish up and I'll be pretty brief. I remember that I was either going to go to Sherbrooke, Quebec to play hockey or go to the Carmelites. And Father Flavian Wilson, the vocation director, drove all the way up from Hamilton to Waterville, Maine, and had dinner with us, stayed with us, and invited me to go down for that vocation week that they had every summer, and the frats were there. And like, that was a really cool place. I go, I haven't been up to Sherbrooke, Quebec, but I think I'm going here. Anyway, what I do remember the first day was leaving home in the morning. Oh, I cried. We went to mass, and the priest that I really worshiped, and he was my idol, said the mass, and we said goodbye. And I was really feeling homesick and not good. And anyway, we drove all the way down to Hamilton. And back in the day, there was no Interstate 95. You had these roads that, 1A or whatever it was. And it took about 4 hours. Anyway, we got there, and I remember getting in the parking lot, and I remember saying goodbye to my parents, and I wasn't terribly upset. The next thing I remember was in a dorm and putting clothes in a dresser, and I had the last bunk next to the lockers, and I think I was on the top and Bob Zahn was on the bottom. And I'm going to end with this. Any of you guys remember Tiscornia?
Yeah.
Well, I think in the dorms, we were in alphabetical order. Tom Vaughn, you would have been around there, Bill Trahant. Anyway, I think it was the first night, Edward Tiscornia, who got in more trouble than anybody else, he was farting in bed. And we were laughing like crazy, the whole dorm. And I thought, oh, this is going to be an interesting trip. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for participating. I just want to let you know that Dave Walsh and Bob Zahn and Sean Joyce had all hoped to be here, but they indicated that they probably were going to have family commitments. So this has been great, guys. We have 17 now who have expressed interest, and I don't know what we had on here tonight, 12 or 13, something like that. It's really great. if you have any suggestions on, what you'd like to talk about, apart from that list, which it certainly wasn't all inclusive, just send me an email. And
Regis, have
we'll do
you
it.
talked to Jack Wilgus about phoning in? I know he
Yeah,
doesn't have the internet capability, but
Yeah, I sent him an email and I said to him, if you have telephone service out there where you are, call in. Maybe he will do that at some point. Okay, guys.
Yeah,
this
I
has been-
also have tried to make a connection with the Washington DC group. Bill Trahant, John Mitchell, Joe Faya, and Seamus O'Halloran, but we haven't had any response from them yet.
Yeah, well, everybody will get the recording, and 34, the recording that I did the last time and sent had 34 views. I think that was, so somebody was watching it.
Great. It's great.
Unless Tom, you were watching it twice.
No,
Three
Well,
times.
thanks very much, Regis. This was a real treat, believe me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well,
yeah, you also mentioned you might do it on a Sunday rather than a Saturday.
what do you think? It matters not to me. I'm willing to try the next one on a Sunday. So Dale Panton he doesn't have to miss that other soccer game. And Son Joyce won't have a Notre Dame game.
Yeah, no college games, but pro games.
Yeah. Do you want to give it a try? What do you guys think? Sunday, the next time?
Sure.
Yeah,
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
We'll
sure.
give it a shot. We'll give it a
Yeah.
shot. I'll have this recording out to you guys tomorrow. It's 11:35 here tonight, and I'm finished after this when we sign off. Okay, guys.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Thank you.
In the
Thank
meantime,
you.
in the
Thanks,
meantime,
Rick.
Regis.
thanks. In the meantime, be well.